Hello, welcome to Arcadia. I'm Ricardo Lopez, aka the First Arcadian, and I just watched Calamity, the Critical Role latest miniseries comprised of 4 episodes about such an historic event in the Exandrian lore, and I have some thoughts and opinions to share, namely, the fact that I'm feeling the void. So I thought I'd just hop by very quickly and share my opinions, my review, if you will, about this miniseries, because I felt something with Exandria Unlimited Calamity that I didn't feel, I believe, since Critical Role Campaign 1, which is that feeling of, being glued to the screen, being unable to just turn it off and wait for the next episode. I remember one time when I was watching Campaign 1, the Chroma Conclave episodes, where I stayed up until 4 a.m. just binging episodes one after the other because I couldn't stop. I had to know what happened next. And I had a very similar feeling with Calamity. So, yeah, let's talk about that. First of all, just a small introduction if you don't know what I'm talking about. Critical Role, well, I think I don't need to explain Critical Role. They're the biggest franchise of D&D streaming that will ever be in this planet. But they just released a new miniseries comprised of 4 episodes, like I said, called Exandria Unlimited Calamity, which is a prequel series. It really is the Rogue One to the Critical Role lore. And it revolves around the Calamity, which is this historic event that happened in Matt Mercer's world, which began this war in which the gods themselves participated, a 100-year war that ended with the split of godhood and immortaldom, and the gods being locked away in the outer planes behind the Divine Gate, which is Matt Mercer's mechanism, the DM reason for the gods to be unable to directly intervene in the world, to make the players be the ones that are steering the boat. And this show happens at the start of that calamity. It actually technically happens just before the calamity begins. It is the downward spiral of events that results in the calamity taking place, or at least starting. And so let me give you my opinions, my breakdown, completely spoiler-free. Don't worry, if you still haven't watched it yet, you can still watch this video, and I promise I'll not spoil anything for you, at least nothing major. Let's break down Exandria Unlimited Calamity. First of all, if you want my review, you have it. It is amazing. It is the freshest D&D experience that I have seen in the last few years, and that is something. First of all, the theme. It was so refreshing and new. I mean, maybe it comes down to taste. I am much more fond of these stories that have drama, that have stakes, that have feeling. What I value most of all in any story, being it a D&D stream or a movie or a comic book or whatever, is the ability to invoke feeling in the reader, in the audience. So that feeling can be good, but can also be bad. And if the feeling is bad, after you watch a really good movie, you feel grief, or you feel sadness, or you feel anything like that, it means the movie worked. Hopefully that was the feeling that the author intended, but that is what I want when I experience a new story. It's to live another person's life and feel what they feel, good or bad. If I don't like to feel bad things, then I just don't watch tragedy, which is kind of what Calamity is. And it's really interesting to see this style, this genre in D&D that I didn't see play out, at least in this scale and with such masterful DMing. It was really great to see. And the storytelling as well was very fluid and very interesting, which all built up to the overall experience. What surprised me the most was the way that everyone's backstories were so interconnected and interwoven into the story itself. There are many times when I see D&D players going through their backstory that has really no interest to any other player or to the story itself. It's just like this thing they do on their own, which is completely, I mean, it's not wrong, but it can feel disconnected. I think that the best backstories, or rather, the most perfect way that I've seen backstories develop is when they tie into the campaign itself and the goals of motivations of the overall party. And in this case, every player played a part, and their backstories, maybe you couldn't call it a backstory because they're really just context. It is a 4-episode series. You don't have time to explore this rich backstory, but the roles that they played were very interesting. They were all very high-level characters who were not exactly governing the city of Avalier, where the story takes place, but they were the top players, the influencers, if you say, the ones that pull the strings behind the curtains. And yeah, that was all very interesting to see play out. And nothing would be possible without such an amazing cast of players. I mean, you had very interesting characters. I think that every single one of them, to the exception maybe of one or two, surprised me a lot. And they all had amazing characters, but this is because they were also very amazing players. This is probably one of the strongest D&D casts I've ever seen. Lou Wilson, Lou Wilson is probably one of my favorite players in the whole world to see. I mean, you cannot not love the guy. He has some excellent work at Dimension 20. I fell in love with him when I first saw his Fabian, and I liked it so much that I incorporated it into one of my NPCs without even knowing it, and which is really great. And in this miniseries, Lou really delivered it. I must imagine that it must be quite intimidating, regardless of the amazing work he has done at Dimension 20, to walk into a set so powerful and big like Critical Role. I mean, as I said, this is the biggest D&D, streaming and actual play franchise, I guess is the right word now, that will ever be, I believe. And to walk in such, regardless of the work he has done in Dimension 20 so far, it's like you played in your hometown football team and you were the regional championship, and that's great, but now suddenly you are hired to play in the Premier League. Now you get to play with the big guns. Not that you were not good in the first place, but if it was me, I would be terrified. I would be mortified. And Lou just delivered it. He just brought his A game from the bat. His character was as flamboyant as it was passionate and inspiring, and I just loved him. And you think that Sam Riegel, who is also one of my favorite D&D players in the world, would be one of the other stars of the show for me. But actually, I mean, Sam has this history of making very plot twisty and heart-ripping characters, so I had very high expectations for him. And I did like Quay, but the biggest surprise for me was Travis Willingham. I've been saying for some time that Travis Willingham is the dark horse of Critical Role. I mean, he's definitely the player who matured the most, and you see him in character in Campaign 1, still coming to grips with the game. We all know the story of him, picking the name for his character. Okay, what's your character's name? Grog. Okay, what's his surname? I don't know, Grog Strongjaw. And you see him now. It was such a development, and I believe he's telling the most humane and most relatable stories now. He makes some of my favorite characters, and in Calamity, he really brought the passionate story of someone who felt humane. And this is huge because many times I see players playing D&D in actual plays, but also at my table, and it feels artificial. It feels like they're playing a part. You don't really believe that their characters are real people. They take decisions that are out of character. Sometimes they make decisions in character, but they don't really feel natural. It feels like they are forcing a character trait to be shown to show a quirk of their character, which is not bad, but sometimes it doesn't feel real. And with Travis' character in this story, at least, it really did feel like a humane person, and I felt like Sareth was doing exactly what a real human would do. Yeah, it was an amazing character. I really believe that if this was ever turned into a movie or an anime or something, Sareth would be the viewpoint character because his story is just amazing. And also let me show some recognition to Luis Carrazzo. I mean, I know he's an actor in NCIS, but I never really watched it. I think that as far as I know, he never played D&D before, and to walk into a stage such as Critical Role and just deliver it like that, I mean, it was just amazing. I also wanted to leave a word of recognition here to him. Great cast. It made the story so alive. But of course, nothing would be as great without such a prodigious dungeon master as Brennan Lee Mulligan, who I think might be the best DM alive. I don't know how his actual home games are. All I've seen from him, all we have seen from him, are actual plays when cameras are rolling, which is a very different style of play to actual gaming. But, you know, his ability to improv, he manages to pull these amazing one-liners, these amazing speeches from villains, and I mean, it's rare enough nowadays to find a dungeon master that receives well the curveballs that their players throw at them, but Brennan not only is able to catch those curveballs really well, he is able to return them so amazingly. And the personality that he brought to the Age of Arcanum as well, all those machines, all those Hextech, spellpunk vibe, it was really awesome to see, really immersive and really evocative, which is one of the main characteristics that I value the most in stories. It was just something that it was amazing to see, and it was remarkable how he delivered such a story in such a short amount of time, something as profound, as deep as it was, but that still felt like a D&D game, which again ties back into that weave of backstories that I was just mentioning a while ago. And what was most surprising for me was the feeling that even though you could kind of see that this was a small railroad, it didn't feel like one. It felt like it was player driven in all instances of interaction between him and the players. I mean, I believe that as a definition, railroading is when you rob a player's agency. And it didn't feel like this at all. But at the same time, you know that this was Calamity. You know that there was this historical event, the apocalypse basically that was coming. And you knew that was the destination. So in the end, can it still be considered a railroad? Maybe, but it always felt like the players were the machines, the engines that were driving the story forward. I believe this is all due to a prodigious amount of backstage work and coordination with the players. I don't believe this was staged, like many people believe Critical Role is. It is scripted, but I do believe that Brennan had an amazing work of prepping everything before and making sure that even though he knew that the players would be basically freeballing it in the middle of the game, he was still sure that their objectives, their missions, their goals would tie into this overarching narrative that he was weaving, and that came to fruition really well in the end. So I believe that this was a great example of how cool D&D can be. I mean, when you watch a stream, or when you make a stream, you don't run it as a normal D&D game. There's always some adaptation that needs to be worked into it, because you need it to be interesting and entertaining for an audience to watch, which is which you can really see in this campaign. There has to be some background work, but at the same time, there is this mystique as well about campaigns where you see the game being genuine. It really makes me think of Campaign 1, where they still weren't very used to streaming, and it all felt like a real D&D game being just broadcast simply. The last campaigns that Critical Role has done really feel like a production to me. And I know it is still a D&D game, I don't believe it is scripted, but at the same time, I can see the strings, and I can see the story beats that are being thrown into it to make it watchable. And I think I like more that genuine aspect that you see in Campaign 1. And in this campaign, I felt like I had a similar kind of excitement. Even though you could see where it was going, you could see that it was moving at such a fast pace, maybe that you didn't have time to really catch up and to really see the strings. You could see that there were story bits that were being targeted, but at the same time, everything was moving, and there was always something new at the next turn, and it made everything very interesting to watch. Now, I think that I already made it very clear that I loved Calamity, and I think it is one of the best things, if not the best, that Critical Role has ever produced. Now, there are already people saying that Exandria Unlimited Calamity just saved Critical Role. I disagree with that, because I don't feel like Critical Role needs saving. I mean, you just need to watch their subscription numbers and their video views, and they are rising by the month. They are not stopping. They are a train with no destination, and we are all in for the ride. But at the same time, I can relate a little bit, because I felt like this was a big jump in excitement from what I was watching in Campaign 3 to what I felt watching Calamity. Which kind of raises the question for me, is Critical Role sinking in a way? I mean, I don't think that the show has lost quality. I think that the quality improved, but I cannot deny how much more awesome this miniseries was compared to the normal Critical Role stuff. Which makes me wonder, why is it? What is Critical Role missing that made Calamity make me think, oh, I didn't feel this since Campaign 1? Which is something that I think I will need to think a little bit more in depth into, because this video is a little bit of a first reaction, and this is something that I think requires further investigation. But it does make you think. And regardless of that, though, I hope to see Brennan around Exandria more often, maybe as a player, but especially as a DM. I really believe he's one of the best DMs out there. He's part of my holy trinity of Mercer, Mulligan, and Colville, and I think that Calamity just brought a breath of fresh air, at least in my personal enjoyment for Critical Role. I cannot wait to see where it is coming, where it is going from now. And I am also interested in knowing, what did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you feel like it was very grim and that made you feel not as happy with it? Did you think it was exactly what Critical Role needed? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's share some ideas and engage in this healthy and positive discussion. I thought this was going to be a small video. I was mistaken, as always. But thank you so much for watching until now, if you survived up to this point. Also, thank you so much for all the people that have been joining the channel. This is a very small channel from a very small guy in a very small country, but I'm truly enjoying making these videos and sharing them with you. They have been helping me a lot, going through some very hard moments in my life in the last few years. And I have all of you to thank you for it. Every time I see a new subscription and every time I release a video and I see it has a very positive reaction, it makes me jump with excitement. All the good comments that I have been receiving and all the words of encouragement mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for sticking up with me, and I hope that you have been enjoying this channel and these videos as much as I did. I am sure to keep posting videos and keep contributing to this collective world. Thank you so much for watching. I'm the first Arcadian, and I hope to see you in the next video.